Hello, one and all, and welcome to yet another episode of Kamen Saber. With this episode 26, Deep Darkness with a Sword. So basically, this episode will explain Kento's whole deal, as well as give us a surprising amount of backstory for the entire setting, which I'm really happy we're getting it now. I would prefer we got it earlier, but we're getting it now, so we have context for a lot of things now. So going off the end of last week, basically, Reika leaves and basically kidnaps Rentaro and leaves with him. And basically Toma is asking Kento what the hell, and Kento decides to fuck off, disappearing into darkness because he can do that now with the Sword of Darkness. It's explained that when you're killed by the Sword of Darkness, there's a 50-50 chance. Well, the chances aren't exactly given, but basically you can either die or be sent to the land of shadows, which I wonder if that's a failsafe to protect the user, considering the fact that what happened with Daichi after the first bout with Draconic Knight during that first debut fight, and how he kind of sort of died in that fight, but he came back almost immediately, meaning that the Sword of Darkness could potentially keep the user alive permanently, as long as they have the will to live or something. I don't know. Which will explain what we're going to find out. What's Kento's deal right now? We'll get into that later. But right now, Yuri decides to tell everybody the full backstory, or at least most of the backstory. So basically, once upon a time, there was this woman who could connect to the Wonder World, as we already knew, and there were 5 people that went along with her to explore the world. One, we find out, is actually Tassel. Yeah, one of the people who went to Wonder World in the original grouping was Tassel, and Tassel decided to stay on Wonder World to protect Wonder World. One of the people was the original Master Logos, who formed the Swords of Logos in order to protect the world on their end and keep the balance. But the remaining 3 stole part of the Book of Destiny and became the first Megiddo. Meaning, we have context for what fucking Master Logos, or the current generation of Master Logos, was saying way back when, a few episodes ago, when he first saw Legiel. You're one of the first. I mean, it's Astorios. He's one of the first. He's one of the first people to have entered Wonderworld with this woman that connects the worlds. That's a lot of lore, and I'm happy we're finally getting it, instead of it being waited to the very end of the series. So yes, the Megiddo that we have, Storios, Zuos, and Legiel, were part of the original party to explore Wonderworld, which, that's kind of cool. It makes the villains stand out a bit more now, or at least make them more of a factor. At the same time, Tassel's actually going to see this world's version, or at least the new generation of Master Logos. He's basically asking him what the hell. And, well, he explains that, I want to get hold of Book of Destiny so that I can rewrite the world, because I find the current world distasteful. He basically might have some baggage with the previous Master Logoses, or at least him having to take up the duty of Master Logos, and maybe he regrets that and wants to rewrite the world because of it. But he's basically become a self-absorbed, maniacal asshole who wants to take over the world, or at least rewrite the world for his own benefit. And we all know what the Megiddo want to do. They also want to rewrite the world for their own benefit. So neither option is good. Well, the traitor of the organization turns out to be the very head of said organization. That's always a fun fight. I mean, that makes sense considering that Reika was taking direct orders from him as the organization assassin. Anyway, with all that lore dropped and plot motivations given, it's a lot, and Yuri decides to go off. Where is he going? He has a fight with Kento to show up to. Well, he just walks down in the garage and Kento's there, because Kento knew he would be there. How does Kento know he was there? Kento has become Homura from Madoka Magica. Those of you who know the reference, you have class. For those of you who don't know the reference, basically speaking, Kento has gone through this before. Apparently many, many times. basically after his original death in the supposed original timeline, he came back, teamed up with Toma and friends, and they worked together to fight the Megiddo, only to lose. With Storios or Legiel taking all that power and erasing the world. But apparently, the Sword of Darkness has another ability. It allowed Kinto to go back in time to, I guess, around the time of his own death, thus allowing him to rewrite history. And he did in another timeline. He rewrote history, pulling a future Trunks, stopping the Megiddo, but then the sword is activated again. The 11 Sacred Blades and the 19, I believe 19 Wonder Ride books all combined together yet again and formed the book, which then proceeded to erase the world. We're then given a bit of a montage and shown that this has happened many, many times. Yeah, sorry about that. This has happened many times to the point where Kinto sees no other option than to save the world. He has to seal away the Sacred Blades. And what does that mean? Apparently, the Sword of Darkness, in order to protect the Sword of Light, has the ability to seal away the powers of the other swords. So, Kinto's plan to save the world and his friends is to seal away the swords so that they cannot cause the end of the world. Which, it's not the worst plan, honestly, considering how many loops this guy's gone through. And if he fails, he can just loop again and see what will happen next time, which he's trying to avoid. Anyway, his plan sealed away the swords, thus stopping all of this madness, even if it means the Megiddo will be free to rampage, because they won't have the source used as a conduit to form the book. Well, I mean, it's not the best plan because it leaves the Megiddo threat unattained, but I'm pretty sure he'll leave the Sword of Darkness alone and he'll just take on the Megiddo solo, which is a dumb plan. Anyway, this leads to a rather kick-ass fight because Reika comes out because she's still trying to steal the swords from everyone else, and they have a really cool fight. I just love these chaotic-ass fights where there's like 3 enemies fighting each other, and then Daisenji and Ryo show up, Buster and Slash respectively, and they fight. They join in the fight trying to get revenge on Reika, who doesn't really go down at all. She's basically pinned against the wall by Kinto, and she's put in a bubble and can't get out, which is kind of cool, but she's still uber strong. But Kinto proceeds to beat down on Buster and Slash, knocking them both out of their transformations, and then he proceeds to seal away the Sword of Sound, which means we won't be seeing any of Slash in the meantime. Also, Reika, at the end of the episode, steals Daisenji's transformation book, so we really won't be seeing Slash again for a minute. So yeah, that happens. Toma tries to use Draconic Knight to fight. Primitive Dragon hijacks the form yet again. It ultimately ends in a bit of a draw, as Toma is... he gets a vision of the sad boy inside a primitive dragon, the spirit inhabiting it, and basically reaches out and basically asks how can he save him, which we'll find out the truth of how to save that boy next episode. So a lot of this episode was a garage fight scene and Kinto's rather visually cool looking flashback. Again, This feels like it comes out of nowhere, but it's still pretty cool because, not only do we have Kinto coming back so we can make the laser turbo jokes, but we also have consequences for basically everything as well as the villain's machinations, because no matter who wins, everyone's fucked. Again, the only way to save the world is to stop, apparently, the sacred swords, and... yeah, we don't know how to do that, so Kinto's obvious solution, seal the swords away, that way no one can abuse their power. Although I think maybe sending away the books too would also help, but I don't know if Sword of Darkness can do that. Overall, I really like this episode for how simple it is. I kind of like this Homura-esque Kinto, who's someone who's seen the world end over and over again, and is just looking for a way to stop the end of the world, basically. It does explain his new mindset, why he is the way he is right now, and has come sort of as an antagonist, but not really, because his ultimate motivation is still saving the world and protecting his friends. It's just that now he has to fight them to save and protect. No, that classic drama shit that's pretty cool when it's used effectively, and I think it's being used pretty well at the moment. I'm pretty sure that we'll go with the whole, oh, you use some kind of new power or something else that I didn't expect, and I didn't see any other timeline, so maybe this timeline will have hope, so maybe I'll leave you alone, or maybe I'll join alongside you this time again. In the multiple timelines that we saw, in most of them, Kento did join up with his friends again, and that still didn't end well, so maybe that'll convince him to either fuck off for now or join up with the crew yet again. He has to apologize to Daisenji for his sword, because my god, he is utterly wrecked when he tries. He's like, what's wrong? He's utterly wrecked when his sword is sealed away. It is honestly heartbreaking, because Slash is a fun character when he's, in the zone, so to speak. And yeah, that's the episode. Now, I do know. I will say this now, we already do know that the movie is officially canon now, because Kamen Rider Falchion from the movie will show up in the show, as he is one of the swords, or at least his sword is one of the swords necessary for the whole Book of Destiny thing. So, that movie's canon now, which, you'd think you would have to debate this with Kamen Rider movies, because most movies are canon, but Zio kind of threw a giant wrench into things, and so I'm debating which movies are canon or not yet again. At least in terms of Zio, because I know Zio's movies aren't entirely canon to Zio. I'll explain that in a year or two. I mean, I know the one movie is canon, but that's a meta mess, and the other movie is a whole different complication. But either way, this episode was fun. We did also get a glimpse at the 11th sword in this. I want to say it reminds me of Kingdom Hearts with the Keyblade Graveyard, but it's not. It's more of a monument. So think of more of a Keyblade Graveyard made into a single monument situation, which honestly I kind of want to see, because that sounds like it'd be really cool to look at. But yeah, overall, as I said multiple times, good episode. A lot of cool moments. A really cool fight scene between 3 skilled opponents, and fucking Daisenji crying his heart out. So now it's just not Toma screaming his ass off in every episode, which, someone give these people lozenges. They're gonna need it before series end. And again, explanations. We finally get some shit explained. I mean, we're at the halfway mark, so it's about time we get some explanations. But some series are fucking fickle bitches when it comes to that shit, and not like the big reveals towards the end game. Although I wonder what big reveals they would have left right now. Also, Tassel might be dead, but I doubt that, so we'll have to find out next episode if Tassel's still alive, which I kind of hope he is, if only because I kind of want a what the fuck moment where Toma and Tassel meet, just because that would sound kind of funny. So I guess we have our answers from that I asked in episode 1. Is this green-haired fucker diegetic or not? Turns out, yes, he is very diegetic. I mean, I should have figured that out with Yuri's whole situation. But still, he's very diegetic. Also, it makes me question something. Is King of Arthur one of the right books necessary for the whole thing? Or is it only counting the complete sets, or the sets used by the individual writers for their transformations and their power-ups? Because that's an interesting question right there. Although I don't know what the answer to be. Also, because Rick is basically collecting the fucking books, we're now back to O's levels of figuring it out. We have to keep up with who has what again. And the swords too, which means Toma has 2. Well, technically Toma's side has 3 now. 4, they had 5, but 1 got sealed, so 4 swords. Kento has the only 1, And the Swords of Logos have 3, with one up in the air about where the 11th sword is and who's its user. Also, yes, Rin did have a moment where he asked about Kento, only to be immediately put back in his place. Dear God, he might run off to join Kento's side, and maybe then we'll get an explanation about why he's so attached to Kento. I'm seriously waiting on that show. Please explain that. Anyway, enough rambling for now. I'll see you all next time.